And then she said, I have a script and I would love you to play my Olivia. And then I read the film and I was blown away.
This is so exciting. We are here at the Paris Theater. Rebecca, I did all this for you.
I mean,
because it's the oldest art house theater in New York City. It was built in
feels special.
1948. It is such a special room. And you are the first skip intro here. And when I saw A House of Dynamite, I was like, we have to get Rebecca Ferguson, because for me, you are the heart that takes us through this film. And I'm so happy to see you. And as you know, I've been like a fan. I feel silly saying a fan because it's limited. I've been an admirer of your work since I first saw you in White Queen. And
we have history, you and I.
Yeah, that little interview.
I know.
And now a lot has happened in between. And here we are. So welcome to
On
New
the
York.
stage. Thank you.
Welcome to the Paris.
This is beautiful. This setup feels a part of the world, doesn't it? It's sort of entertainment and yet the topical nature of it all.
Yeah.
It feels
all the
grounded.
world smashing in together. So let's talk about A House of Dynamite, and let's talk about Catherine Bigelow. So this film, I mean, she's a very visceral, psychological, brilliant director. And this film is, it is so good and so terrifying and thrilling, and I also learned so much through it. For you as an actress, did the part start with a phone call? Did it start with the script? Like, was it her name? Just take me through that.
The first thing that happened was a phone call from my agent saying, Catherine Bigelow would like to have a Zoom with you. And I think that sentence was enough to get my heart beating, sort of sweaty palms. And it comes with expectations and also the fact that the weight that Catherine puts into her films, you know that you're in for a ride that is more than just entertainment. And meeting a very intelligent human being is quite daunting. But I sat down prepared for nothing really, because I didn't know what she was making. I didn't know what I was meeting, which was quite wonderful. And there was this incredibly kind, as you've seen when you hear her through interviews, she doesn't push down her political views down your throat with, you know, anarchy and bravado. She has a very calm, soft, welcoming aura. And I think we spoke for an hour and a half about what she was after, what she was looking for, what I was interested in doing. She was sussing out the playing field. It was like we were playing a very kind version of a chess game, which I didn't really know where it was going. And then she said, I have a script and I would love you to play my Olivia. And then I read the film and I was blown away. I was blown away. I felt scared. I felt the importance of what she was going to make. And then also, I think as an actor, you have to sometimes look at your role as not the focus point for a film. You might be offered a role where you're not the center of attention, but you are a part of making a picture. And that is what this has become for me. Thank you.
Admiral Miller,
That's me.
we need to move you to the PEOC, sir.
Okay, well, we all just can't leave. We need to make an orderly transition. Get the flyaway team to Raven Rock.
Not everyone. Just you, Gordon, Caldwell, and Stern. Those are the names I have on the COG list.
One moment. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's... Okay. Liv, can we... Everyone back to it.
You get on?
You should go.
Me?
Yes, just
No.
in case.
Come on, that's not how this works. No. The president's gonna call the bunker. He's gonna expect you to answer. He can't pick me out of a lineup. Come on. Besides, GBI is gonna take this thing right out, right? If it's even real. Hey, didn't the Soviets mistake a flock of birds for ICBMs once?
Sun. 83. High altitude clouds.
It's a sunny day, sir.
Sir, I have instructions to physically escort you.
I've got it. Okay?
Okay.
You're introduced to us at the beginning, right? And so that's why for me, it's like you kind of set that tone. You're a mother, I'm a mother.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, who is this person? We don't know anything about her, but we see her with her husband and her young son doing very normal
Yeah.
family things, reading a book, putting them to bed, and then all of a sudden we go in.
Pissing off my husband at 2 a.m., playing with the trains, you know, anything for the kid.
Yeah, and then it becomes this kind of metronome.
Yeah.
Walk in, Captain Olivia, you are in charge of the Situation Room. There are no cell phones. There are no
Personal
no
items.
nothing. You go right into it. What was that like, moving through that and getting into that, like on that first day of set? And I should also say that you're not around all the other actors.
No.
Because this is in 3 parts, and we see that this 18 minutes is critical 18 minutes.
The structure of this shoot was something I've never experienced before. But to go back, I think one of the most amazing things that Noam has managed with this film that we talk a lot about is how can we create and merge humanity with such an intense topic like nuclear weapons? How do we bring an audience in and make them feel relatable? And I guess that was the job that we as actors had, was trying to find within 18 minutes or maybe 20 minutes that you had, give and take 3 minutes prior to the event, to bring some form of cracks, humanity, personalized little moments. Like, for example, Idris's shoe is a little bit too small. It's silly and it's small, but you lean into the characters. And in this beginning, you know, one of the most beautiful compliments I had was I watched this film with my son, who's 18. And he turned to me and he said, "It's the first role where I see my mother." And he said, "The way that you are in the bedroom, it's 5 minutes, but it is how you were with me. It is how you speak." And I thought, that's probably because Catherine said to me, "I need the most authentic version of you before the perfection of Olivia Walker needs to kick in. So I need that beginning. It's the most critical moment for me."
That's so interesting.
Also, like Catherine, listening to her doing these interviews, I still learn so much. Reading the script was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Just the fact that one entity can sit with a finger and activate a nuclear war. You know, there's so many conversations to be held, but also the fact that there are so many people who are trained daily for events like this. They train over once or twice a day, 400 times a year for events like this. And they're human. They then go home. They then cook and they do the thing and they put their children to bed and then they walk through. And I think that's also why they need to take away anything personal. You know, in the handover, you just get what has happened during the night. There's a fire here and there. There's a river that has crashed in Pyongyang. Whatever there is, you leave everything else outside the door.
I have to talk to you about one scene, because the way Catherine shoots this film, it's constant motion. Everywhere you are, there's a camera. It's big. Every face is on the screen, you know, small screens. You're in the Situation Room. People, very smart people are trying to figure out what's going on. There's chaos, confusion. Your character in particular is trying to synthesize that in rapid speed, connecting those dots, communicating while keeping the language that you have to have a certain language. That to me was like, my heart was racing through that whole thing. And then there is a moment where she goes into a room and you see everything on her face and the emotion come and you well up and the camera's right there.
Okay. Hey,
Listen to me, get Liam, get in the car and just start driving. Right?
Where? What are you talking about?
West, go west as fast as you can. Get away from any urban centers you can
Liv,
get,
what the
okay?
fuck?
Listen
What's
to
going
me.
on there?
I'll call you. I love you. I love you. Can you kiss Liam for me? Just kiss him. Bye.
Were there cameras everywhere you turned? I was just so curious about.
The specialist who I talked to called Larry Pfeiffer. So Larry Pfeiffer is the real Jason Clarke's character. So he was my boss and he was on set every day. And I would text him and ask him big questions and like silly little questions of which phone do I answer? Where do I call POTUS? Every single detail. And one of the main things he said was, you never lose your cool. You do not ever break down crying. You never shout. You are the one, you are the composer or the director in the room. And if you're not level-headed, everyone else will be freaked out. So that's number one. So through filming, there were never moments where Catherine said, I think this is a moment where you should be crying, or I think this is a moment where it all came very naturally because we were filming sequentially. And I can't say what led up to it. If we had filmed the moment with the little dinosaur, which was a little gadget that I actively played around with, I put in my pocket and I made a little thing that became a thing. And I put my hand in the pocket and I felt it. And I think Rebecca, had a moment. And I felt, oh, cameras are rolling. I'm going to start crying. I'm not allowed to. I'm just going to turn around and leave the room. And because of the way Catherine films, you have freedom to walk wherever you want. You can do whatever you want. The camera will grab you. And she stopped and she said, why did you leave? And I said, because I was about to cry. And she said, great, put a camera in, let's see if that happens again. So her way is so fine-tuning. She's so flexible in her response to what we're offering up. And it also happened when Malachi, who was the officer to my left, grabbed my hand and it shook something in me, and I thought, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Waterworks on, and I turned my head away, but I actually didn't know that Barry had a camera there.
Is it hard to get used to that as an actor? Because that's not normally the way things are shot.
I never had that. I've never been on stage. I've never done a play. But I can imagine that's what this would have felt like. You were constantly on, constantly the possibility of being seen. And it was just about being as authentic and real and doing your job.
What was your experience when you first saw the film all put together?
That is the moment when I realized the power of the story. I don't think I had actually really understood the gravitas of it. I think the edit, the fact that the 18 minutes go on repeat and shown from different perspectives, sedimented sort of like a gut punch every time, the importance of the conversation that we're not having. It was my husband, my friend, and my son, and we just sat silenced for about 3 minutes. No one said anything, because there was nothing to say. There's no compliment, there's no high five moment. And I think that's what this film is to me.
Reed, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh. Yeah, I'm here.
What do you make of all this?
I really don't know.
You don't know. You're running the fucking Pentagon. I had one briefing when I was sworn in. One. And they told me that's the protocol.
They told me the same thing.
Shit, I got a whole fucking briefing on what a Supreme Court justice does. Replacements. Replacement for what happens if the replacement drops out. Shit, what to do if the original guy crawls out of his grave and wants his job back?
We focused on more likely scenarios. Things we might actually have to deal with.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with this.
Best I can remember, we follow the steps. We're following procedure.
Yeah, it feels so real. For me watching, what would I do? Immediately you start thinking about that. What would I do? And then when you see the different characters at the different points in the film respond, you're like, oh, would I do that way? Or how do you balance that? And you're not really allowed to give an opinion.
Exactly, and that's something, to be honest, I've heard people, and you say it, and I think maybe I'm different. I don't think, what would I do in that situation? Because it's not a scenario that I could even contemplate, because I am not trained. I guess I also think what you're meaning is the presidency. What decision do you make? But for me, it's the gravitas that this is the situation. I think I feel more perplexed and so confused that this is the system. That highly trained people are training and sitting in these rooms knowing far more than the person who makes the decision. It goes beyond me.
And
That's
have trained
where
for
I end up.
years and years and years. And ideally, the person making the decision could have just been elected or, you know, a year and a half on the job. And, you know, you think about that. And that's amazing. And Idris is incredible as POTUS. He's great. I mean, all the actors, I have to say, everyone does their job. And one of the things, I think it's Anthony Ramos's character. At one point, his character, when he says, we did everything right, or we did everything right.
Yeah.
Because
It's the
everyone's
repetition
following
of also trying to justify your actions, right? And that's something I love seeing as well, how this works. You have, basically, I'm the highest switchboard that there is. Sort of, to make it unsexy, but a switchboard, thinking 10 steps ahead of, if I can't reach the president of Russia, who do I need to talk to? Who's the specialist? Who does POTUS need to talk to at this moment? And I have 2 minutes to connect these people. If that person's disconnect happens, who do I then call? But without any opinion, without any authority to make a decision, I'm only there to connect. Whilst Anthony's character is a physicality of it. He's there on the ground. He's a soldier. So everything that trickles down to his action becomes a reaction of guilt and shame and, yeah, the burden. He sits with the burden.
You okay, Sergeant?
Put up Stratcom's audio. 10 seconds. 9. 8.
I said before with the chips. Hey, we're good, man. I'm a slob.
5.
And to hell with her, shouldn't have left it
4.
like that.
3. 2. 1.
And these kids are not older than, I mean, what are they? 20, 25, younger.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And I imagine working with Catherine, you've talked about it, she was as good as advertised.
Catherine has made so many incredible films, political films, whether you like them or not. She has opened a door for us to see into, like you said, the reality of something that we rarely would have known about or been interested about. But she does it in a way that makes us feel relatable. We feel like we understand it better. And what happens is she gets everyone at the highest level of intelligence to want to collaborate with her, which means that the information handed down to her to make a film like this is authentic and real. And that's incredible to be around and quite scary. The people who come and visit our set, it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the who's who of the highest intelligence. And you think, I'm just going to stay, I'm going to go to the canteen.
Yeah. All right. I want to take you a little bit back to the beginning, okay, of your career. You started on a Swedish soap opera, right? It wasn't really something you were in music and dance. It wasn't like you were, I'm going to be an actress. That's your goal as a young person.
I just didn't have the push. I didn't have the urgency. I've always been quite free-flowing, thinking, I'll try this out, and I'll try this out, and this doesn't work, then I'll go and work over here.
And then what was that moment for you when you got cast in White Queen, right? Because that was a big moment. And then you were suddenly on a red carpet at the Golden Globes. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that really changed. That was a switch that went off. Can you remember it?
Yeah,
Does it feel like a long time ago?
It
or-
is, but it's also so nice to talk about because I think, for me anyway, life goes so quickly that these are the moments that we stop and get to contemplate that electricity and the butterflies again. I think it went so quickly. They had cast everyone, but they hadn't found the Queen. And I remember flying over, meeting Max Irons, flying back, not hearing anything, and then all of a sudden I was flown over, and I now know that we were 2 women in 2 different hotels. Everything was set up, the table read, but they hadn't decided which one of us. because there was still a conversation between the stars in America and BBC, and they were not aligned with their thoughts. And thank God I didn't know that. I mean, it's crazy. And then I got the call, and within a second, I was at a table read. I had to move within 4 days. It was the quickest, most thrilling and scary moment in my life. And it wasn't until a moment when me and Max were sitting on a throne, looking out over all of the people and all of the clothes and the dresses. And I remember looking at him going, we're King and Queen of England. Like, we're in thrones right now. He was like, I know, it's quite mad.
Yeah. Oh, so good. The series is so good. You both were amazing in it. And then
It was
you were
fun.
shot out of a cannon, basically. At that point, it felt like it was one after another and big, giant productions from, Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman. And then obviously the Mission Impossible series. One of my favorite characters.
Ilsa.
Ilsa Faust with an eye patch. And
She's cool.
She's so cool.
She was so cool.
And you went toe-to-toe with Tom Cruise, which I love. You did those stunts, you held your breath, you did all that stuff, you met the moment.
It was probably, I feel very lucky. I really do. Do you know when you say you didn't have sort of the urgency, I often say I often feel not worthy being where I am. I don't know if you can say that, but I know that so many people who have really worked and who are a hell of a lot better than I am, those momentums where you think, how did I end up here? How grateful I am. And Mission for me changed my life. Everything changes your life and everything is obviously a catalyst and a domino effect, but Mission changed my life. But it also gave me zest for something I had no idea that I was good at and that I would love even now. I miss the stunts, I miss the defibrillation that comes being on a set with Tom. He's one of the last movie stars of our time, It comes with an air.
Did he challenge you? Did you feel like that because he was doing it, you had to do it?
Yes, but in a way that someone grabs your hand and goes, let's just run. Are you ready? And you're a bit scared and we're so trained. Everything that was done with Tom is done meticulously.
Right.
And it was something that I learned when I came into other moments of stunts, etc. I heard Tom. I found myself repeating things that he would do. I double-check harnesses. It's in my body because we did it for so many years.
So many years.
So many years, but never forced. I had stunt people ready, wanting to do the stunts, and I was, whatever I could do, I would do. And then
Which was one of the hardest things that you did physically?
challenging height. I was terrified of heights. And one of the first days of shooting was jumping up on the Vienna rooftop, the opera house in Vienna. And it's like this edge of the stage here. And Tom's standing on the edge, and I have to jump with my back towards and basically straddle him. And then he just steps out over the building, and we had a free fall down.
And I should mention, you did that in a dress,
Yeah.
in an evening gown.
Yeah.
So let's add that.
Shoes off, gown
Shoes
wrapped
off.
around,
Yeah.
practicality,
Yeah.
here we go.
Here we go. All right, where are we on Dune 3, Lady Jessica? Are you finished filming that, or are you
Nope.
still in motion? Okay.
I have one more day. I'm going out to Iceland in a couple of days. I think I get to wrap the film with
Another
Denny.
fantastic role, great film as well. And Timmy.
Phenomenal film. All of them.
Do we call him Timmy or Timothy? I mean,
I don't know. Whatever rocks it works.
whatever works, it works.
But for me, it's Denny.
Denny. Yeah.
Denny is what makes that film so exquisite. And Paul, the visual effects. I mean, the team.
Yeah, I love that. I love
And the
that
cast.
series, and the cast is great,
Anya.
and the veils and the whole
Jackie's
mythology
costume.
and all of that stuff is.
We've laughed a lot about
yeah.
it. I did an interview and I saw a lot of criticism and I laughed so much. I said in an interview once, Denny loves veils and jingle jangles And then he puts veils over the jingle jangles, and then he puts a big hat on it. And I think I said, come on, I mean, you can have a stunt woman behind this. I want to see my face. But I was obviously joking.
Yeah.
And there was a criticism too. You should just be grateful. And I thought, yeah, but I'm also allowed to want to be shown in a film with Denny. I'm proud, you know? And he was laughing. He said, you can have the jingle jangle. I'll take the shawl.
Take the shawl off. You've mentioned before that you're not trained, you're not classically trained as an actor. Does that give you any insecurity? Are you past that at any point? Did it stop you or give you pause?
I'm never fully comfortable in the choices I make. I'm very intuitive, is that the word? I very much, I go with the moment. So if you and I have a scene, I'm reactive, I listen, I'm present. But I think what I get locked in my acting is if you keep doing the repetition of that, you never really change character, right? Building a character is very important and fun for yourself as well as the viewers. So that is something I felt that I lacked, is understanding how to break down and create character and to how to get out of your comfort zone. But I have acting coaches, and I have one, James Camp, who I've used for my last 7 films. And I put everything on the table with him and trust, and we play. And it's working, but
I'd say it's working.
I don't know.
I mean, you have such a light touch. I feel I'm always seeing the character. I'm never
Really?
seeing you. Yeah.
I think maybe it's hard for actors to look at themselves and think, that's great. I did a 180 to something else. I always see me in the core. And I think that's why a lot of actors don't like watching themselves, because I can feel a bit deflated and bored by my own choices. And I think the self-centeredness of that can just go away, and I try and just have fun with it.
Get out of your head.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sometimes think, oh, come on, Rebecca. What was that choice? That was boring. Or someone comes in and does a choice that is so brilliant, and you think, God dash it, why didn't I think of that?
It's so funny. Okay, so you're doing the Peaky Blinders movie for us, which
I
is
know.
really exciting. So we might be
I'm
back
excited.
here talking about
We
that. I
should
know
be.
we can't say a word, but
I know, and the amount of questions I get. And I
I'm
just go,
sure.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. All right, I'm going to go through some questions that I have been asking people, asking my guests for the last year and a half, and I love some of the conversations that come from
Okay.
it. And one of the first one is about birth order and how, whether you're an only child, the youngest of 5, the middle child, whatever, I happen to be the youngest of 3, how your birth order affects who you are in life.
So I am second of 4 girls, but from 2 different households. So I think it affected me in a sense that I was the middle ground to 2 different environments. That makes sense. There was a stable family, and then there was a stability here, and then I was the one jumping in and out.
Oh, fascinating.
Fascinating, traumatizing, and I guess the chameleon in myself having to adapt to 2 very different homes.
And resilience.
And a lot of therapy.
A lot of therapy. Yeah.
What doesn't kill you, right?
Makes you stronger. Right. That's interesting. Okay. So then my other question is about that, we know FOMO, fear of missing out, but the opposite of that, a JOMO. What is the joy? What joy do you have of missing out on
That's
things?
so
What are
funny.
you
I
so
saw
happy?
Killian do an interview
Yeah.
with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And I think he said that he had either JOMO, he called it something like that. And I thought, that's great.
Yeah.
Very
What is
Killian.
that? Because we all talk about FOMO, and we know that, people are, oh, I'm not there, I'm not here, or I want to do that, or wouldn't that be fun? And I
Me
was
and
like, well, what's the
Killian are
opposite?
very similar here. I couldn't want to be less involved.
What does that mean, Rebecca? Less involved in...
I have no interest in social media. I try. I dip in and out. I understand the world, and I understand the support that I like to make my films. But I like to connect with people and have good conversations. I don't scatter around conversations like little butterflies on flowers. I don't do that very well. I get a lot of anxiety. I don't like big parties. I don't like the social engagement, but I can put my face on and do a job and enjoy it. I like interviews because I can give answers that are thoughtful and I can choose to not answer. But there is nothing, there is nowhere where I would feel FOMO. Would you? Where would you feel it?
I mean,
If there's
well, I wish
something-
I would have seen Oasis. Like when I see everybody they went to the concert to see Oasis, I'm like,
couldn't
oh, why
panic
did they-
me more.
Is it the crowds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. There's a pressure. I don't like it. I don't. Cinema. I love cinema. So it's not crowds. I love feeling the energy of other people in a cinema. But I get flustered. I don't like it. I do quick exits. I come in and I leave as quickly as I can.
And would you go to a concert if your son wanted to go?
Yes.
Okay. So that's different. If then
Yeah. And I would enjoy it with him. I've never been interested in sports, but if I'm sitting with people who love it, I think I'm the most engaged. I think I'm very affected by people I love, and I love bringing the energy that they have, and I can measure it.
I love that you absorb it and you're into it.
And
Right,
then I
'cause
go,
you're
and then I'm
curious.
done. I'm curious. Yeah, I am.
You're a very curious person. And I see that in your work and even in your choices, which is why we're here, and why I'm always curious about what
I like
you're
this.
doing
We can
next.
sit here for a long time.
Yeah, we could. All right, so we've talked about a couple of these.
Yeah.
This leads into my next question, which is about, our anxieties and phobias that we carry with us, right? So we've talked about heights.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you got over that. I think
Situational.
jumping off of a building.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about crowds.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that still kind of haunts you that you haven't been able to work through? Any kind of like irrational fear?
But I'm extremely claustrophobic to a point that it becomes an obstacle in my life. And I haven't yet I haven't made time to do hypnotherapy. I have, it's a real problem. And it's getting worse, and I think it's getting worse because I'm feeding it, because I haven't had time to work on it, because I'm constantly working. I did EMDR, and I've done all alternatives, and I've done therapy on it. And I don't drink, I don't do drugs, so I have to sit through feelings. But I have to constantly public lose. I have to lock the door before the door is locked, and put my foot against it. Aeroplanes, weirdly enough, I'm okay once I'm in the air, but if we're on the runway and they won't open the door and we're stuck, a lot of breathing, and I've had panic attacks. And
And does it stem from anything, or is it just control, or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the therapy,
Yeah.
right? I think it is the control that I need to know that I have the power to get out, and it is not ruled by technology or mechanism. I don't trust it. But also, I did a life cast once. You know these little casts that we have to do sometimes to have replicas of our faces. And prior to that, I could go in an elevator. I could go in public loos and lock the door. Now, I'm like Jason Bourne, but it's very unsexy. So if you think that you go into a loo, if the door opens in towards the loo and closes, it means that the door frame is closing on a door frame, which means you can't kick the door open.
Correct.
Right. So those doors are an absolute no. If they can be kicked out, it sounds absolutely bonkers. But I had a life cast, and I said, I'm very claustrophobic. And sadly enough, this man said, you're all right. And I trusted him. And it's not his fault. Something kicked in. Little straws, cotton wool. They put the cream on. They put the latex on. And all of a sudden, the latex that was so thick solidified. And I just heard, And I couldn't take it off. And I heard him say, "We're putting the cast on now." And I started shaking and sweating. And my husband was there. And I started grabbing. I couldn't get my fingers in it. All I heard was them say, "Hold her hands." And he said, "Don't touch her. Don't touch her." I just heard him say, "Don't touch her." And I started blinking, realizing I could create air pockets in my eyes. And then I jabbed my fingers into the air pockets, and that I could tear it off. And for, I think, a week, I woke up screaming every night. And from that moment, I can't go in bloody elevators. And
Well, what happened to the face cast?
I mean, I couldn't care less.
Yeah, you're like, not gonna
interested.
happen. Not gonna happen. Yeah, it's also the texture and the feeling and the warmth.
It's the fact that
a
they have to
lot of
chisel you out
sensory.
of it, you
Yeah,
know.
there's a lot, but it's hard. I don't know how people can do those things and fly and be pilots and get strapped
Oh
in
my
and
God.
do all that stuff.
But also, I get these interviews and I think, oh, come on. It's like lazy journalism. It really annoys me. And I know it shouldn't. But they go, "But if you're claustrophobic, how do you film on sets like Silo?" And I think because it's one of the biggest sets we've ever had, and we have doors and it's also a set. Come on.
We work through it. Okay, my last question is...
It's not that one.
No, it's not that one. My last question is about a memory that you had. We talked a little bit about the memory of the process of White Queen, but what is a memory for you, either in childhood or somewhere along the way in your journey leading up to this moment, that you still think about, that was very impactful for you in one way or another?
Do you know something funny that comes to mind, which I didn't know why? So my mum, when they separated, my mum and dad, she was a single mum, and it's one of the things that I think that I have carried with me from her. I never complain. I make things work. If I don't have a job, I get a job. Even if I'm famous in a soap opera, I don't care. I clean hotel rooms and I work in shoe shops, and you just ends meet. You work. And I remember my mum always picking me up on a bicycle, and she would put a cushion on the back because she didn't have much money at all. And I would sit from school, and then I would cycle. She would come from one shift. She would have done a second shift, and she would pick me up, and she would cycle all the way. And I can't remember how long it was, 40 minutes on a bike with me to a golf club where she would then serve and waiter. And I was with all of the waiters and the chefs, and I would do my homework. But that memory came. I think she was such a powerhouse, she's still alive. And she would never make us feel like we didn't have the equal to others, even though we definitely didn't. That came to mind.
Yeah, it's a beautiful memory.
Yeah, and I remember loving it. I would fall asleep on her back while she would cycle, but thinking about what she has been doing, just making it work.
And you're making it work. It's been lovely to talk to you, Rebecca. I'm sad that we don't have more time.
Me too.
Next time we'll get more for Peaky, and then we can talk about that. But it's great to see you. I love your work. You're
Thank
awesome.
you.
And this film I just can't wait for the world to see this film.
Me too. Thank you, Liz. Thank you.